ವೈಯಕ್ತಿಕ ಗೀತೆಯ ನಂತರ ಶ್ರೀಯುತರು ವಿಷಯ ಮಂಡನೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡಲಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
ಅರಳಲಿದೆ ನವ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶ ಕಗ್ಗತ್ತಲ ಒಡಲಿಂದ, ಬೆಳಗಲಿದೆ ಭುವಿಯಂಗುಲ ಅಂಗುಲ ಹಿಂದುತ್ವದ ಪ್ರಭೆಯಿಂದ, ಮನುಜನ ಜನುಮವ ಸಾರ್ಥಕಗೊಳಿಸಿಹ ಮುನಿಜನರಮೃತವಾಣಿ, ಅನುಜತ್ವದ ಆದರ್ಶವ ಸಾರಿದ ಕಾವ್ಯಗಳದ್ಭುತ ಶ್ರೇಣಿ, ಚಿಮ್ಮಲಿದೆ ಚೈತನ್ಯದ ಚಿಲುಮೆ, ಪ್ರಾಚೀನದ ನೆಲೆಯಿಂದ ಅರಳಲಿದೆ ನವ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶ ಕಗ್ಗತ್ತಲ ಒಡಲಿಂದ, ಶತಶತಮಾನದ ಆಗತ ವೈಭವ ಭೂಗತವಾಗುವ ಮುನ್ನ, ಜಾಗೃತಗೊಳಿಸಿ ಸುಷುಪ್ತ ಜನಾಂಗವ ಸಮಯವು ಮೀರುವ ಮುನ್ನ, ಉದಿಸಲಿದೆ ನವ ಹಿಂದೂ ಸಮಾಜ, ಶತಾವಶೇಷಗಳಿಂದ ಅರಳಲಿದೆ ನವ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶ ಕಗ್ಗತ್ತಲ ಒಡಲಿಂದ, ಬೆಳಗಲಿದೆ ಭುವಿಯಂಗುಲ ಅಂಗುಲ ಹಿಂದುತ್ವದ ಪ್ರಭೆಯಿಂದ, ಹಬ್ಬಿದ ಮಬ್ಬಲಿ ಗುರಿಯನ್ನು ತಪ್ಪಿದ ಮೌಢ್ಯವನಪ್ಪಿದ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ, ಅರಿವಿನ ಈ ಅರುಣೋದಯ ಕಾಲದಿ ಇಳೆಯನೆ ಬೆಳಗುವ ಬಯಕೆ, ಮೂಡಲಿದೆ ನೂತನ ಆಶೋತ್ತರ ಹತ ಆಕಾಂಕ್ಷೆಗಳಿಂದ ಅರಳಲಿದೆ ನವ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶ ಕಗ್ಗತ್ತಲ ಒಡಲಿಂದ, ಬೆಳಗಲಿದೆ ಭುವಿಯಂಗುಲ ಅಂಗುಲ ಹಿಂದುತ್ವದ ಪ್ರಭೆಯಿಂದ, ದುಡುಕಿದ ಅನುಜರ ಸಿಡುಕಿನ ಕೃತ್ಯವು ತಂದಿದೆ ನಾಡಿಗಪಾಯ, ಒಡಕಿನ ಜಾಲಕ್ಕೆ ಕೆಡುಕಿನ ಕಾಲಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾರುತ ಅಂತ್ಯ ವಿದಾಯ, ಉಕ್ಕಲಿದೆ ಸಂಜೀವಿನಿ ಅಮೃತ, ಹಲದೆಡೆಯಿಂದ ಅರಳಲಿದೆ ನವ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶ ಕಗ್ಗತ್ತಲ ಒಡಲಿಂದ, ಬೆಳಗಲಿದೆ ಭುವಿಯಂಗುಲ ಅಂಗುಲ ಹಿಂದುತ್ವದ ಪ್ರಭೆಯಿಂದ,
अखिल भारतीय विद्यार्थी परिषद साउथ कर्नाटका प्रांत. We are in the second last day of our Abhyas Varga. We started on 25th and today happens to be the penultimate day, one before the last. In the last 2 days, one in the evening and then throughout the day yesterday, we had taken up some of the sessions. In those sessions, discussions happened on Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad's basic foundation, belief system, on work philosophy, we call it Karya Paddhati, on campus activism, and how to run the unit, Ikai Sanchalani. So some of those sessions are basically how we actually work on ground. And those sessions were taken up partly from the dais and partly it was discussed in 4 or 5 groups where we had set across this campus. The morning session is generally slightly different. I have been tasked to discuss with you about the global scenarios and the role of youth. Part of my duty is to present the discussion which generally academic people, people in organization, and people who are in know-how whenever we interact with them. So I will be taking up that totality of the conversation, discussion, and present you that kind of a view. And in part, I am requesting you might be also having some questions, doubts. So I will request you to come back in the break to discuss about the discussion points which you find interesting or you have a comment to share. मैं अगले कुछ मिनटों में कुछ एक ब्रीफ प्रेजेंटेशन करूंगा और रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा हूं you will come back with your comments and feedback. Not because that whatever I will say would be the finality of the points. The point is what exactly we are understanding as youth on those points. If I have to slightly tweak this topic, I would say that it is current global scenarios, world scenarios, and the role of youth, the global youth or the Indian youth, and if it is Indian youth, then in what perspective that role is defined. Do we think that India's story has to become better? Yes, 100%. We believe that the 2047, the 100th year of India's independence, should become a momentous time which the present government has declared as Viksit Bharat Abhiyan. So in that sense, this is the 25 years, we have a very momentous time in front of us till 2047. And the people who are here, who are in 18, 19, 20, we have a lot to be done through our shoulders. We have to take up huge responsibility in order to deliver what is expected in 2047. So my later half of the conversation would be the role of youth globally, the role of youth India specific predominantly, and in what context, the context of 2047 for Viksit Bharat. So if I have to say that the present global order or the present global situation or the global scenario, if we think of global scenario as as one world, as a one planet. So it is almost like billions of years. The population, the civilization, all the critique and academics say that it is more than 10,000 years old. If you go back in history, there are Egyptian civilization, Mesopotamian civilization, there is Chinese, Sino civilization, there is Indus Valley, Indic civilization, there is Mayan and Incas, then the European, the Roman, Greek civilization, and the populations across continents. The history would be, you can fairly stretch it into 5 to 7,000 years. So there is, in terms of the world, the earth, we have been inhabiting this earth as a conscious people for almost like more than lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh years. As civilized people, it is almost like 5 to 7,000 years. And with the written history, documented history in the European context, they say it is 2,000 years old. But in the Indian context, our stories, our tales, our memories through the folklores said through the written and in verbal format, it spans thousands of years. So in that sense, the present global scenario, if you have to look it through environmentally, geologically, it hasn't, like, we have a continuum even to this day. Obviously, with advent of technology, it has changed drastically over last 200 years. In last 200 years, we have connected far greater. If you read the report of Professor Angus Madison, a comparison of GDPs of the world from 0 AD to 2000 AD, he speaks about how the world grew at a faster pace in last 200 years. He says that in year 0 AD, when Christ was born, and till 1000, the growth in first 1000 years was nothing phenomenal. Nothing drastically changed. Even up till 1700s, from 0 AD, you had bullock carts, you had horses, you had all the connections were basically from the force which you have taken in the muscles. So muscle strength of either human, muscle strength of either animal. That was the way of governing it. But with the advent of electricity, it has changed phenomenally. First as a steam engine, James Watt, and then electrical connections, Faraday and others. It has changed the scenario of our technological as well as business. And that also was the reason that the Europeans on one hand has tremendous technological power, had tremendous industrial strength, and they leaped on all across the globe to loot in a colonial powers, in a colonial mindset. And they went across Africa, they went across Asia, South America, North America, Australia. No place on the earth was left out by Europeans to loot and plunder, but in a technological manner. They went there as technological companies, as companies which would trade, as companies which would barter and then accumulate wealth across the European continent. And that's why the Europeans are the present day, those old money institutions, all the older banks, whether it is the Bank of London or the bank across the Europe, those banks hold billions and billions of, or should I say trillions of dollars through the benefits of these earlier colonies, whether Africa, whether whole of Asia, whether Americas, whether Australia and New Zealand. All these territories, their resources were utilized for the benefit of the Europeans. That was the crux of the situation. देखिए, एक बार आप ह्यूमन एनर्जी के ऊपर काम करता है ना, दो ह्यूमन, तो टू ह्यूमन आर ऑलमोस्ट सिमिलर. Even if one person is 6 feet height, other person is 5.6. One person is 5.6, other person is 6.5. Even after that kind of a difference in a human strength, you cannot totally dominate the society of other people. There, the institutions come in play, then institutions, those are also coming to play. There is a very brilliant book by the name Why Nations Fail. It is written by Anderson, and this book particularly explains how people in the different continent had actually governed themselves, and which actually allowed an institution to be made which could continue sustain the development in that country. आप ऐसा कैसा राजनीतिक तंत्र बनाते हैं, शासन तंत्र बनाते हैं. You make a शासन, a political or a governing model which sustains development in that country. So he has taken example of China, that in China for thousands of years, almost like 2,000 to 3,000 years, they used to have imperial means the king, the imperial court, and examination for the imperial court. People who qualified that exam, just like IAS, they used to become the bureaucracy of the Chinese empire or the Chinese kingdom. Whichever king came, whichever dynasty came to the power in Beijing, their system of governance was relied on these people who qualified that exam. So much so that when Mongols attacked China, these Chinese people said, see, if you want to govern us, you can't govern the whole of China. You need the bureaucracy of the China. And the bureaucracy of China is also called Mandarins. And because of this very terms, that there is a examination in order to become the bureaucracy of the Chinese kingdom, these Mandarins are also called people who are diplomats, or the people who work behind the scenes, drafting, like writing and discussing. That is another word across literature when it is utilized in that sense. On the other hand, when they studied India, they depicted how India in the Gupta's period was on a high, how Mughal period was on other side of the conflict, and then they commented upon the India's social structures also. Alas, that book didn't go further into the details which Angus Madison in his report had depicted about China's and India's rise over the last 2,000 years. But in many, many ways, this book, when it speaks about South Americas, speaks about North America, they explain how those two continents or two areas was actually captured by Spanish as well as Portugal forces, and they governed majority of those lands, and southern areas of southern America was taken up by French people, French and British colonialists, and through those territories they governed their trade with South America, and they literally changed the social and cultural structure of South America. Now you call it Latin America whenever you are speaking in the linguistic term or in a cultural terms. So much so was the influence that the word caste has actually come from the European influence or the Spanish influence in South America is called casta. C-A-S-T-A, casta. From the casta word has the word caste, C-A-S-T-E, came in literature. In North America, the territories were with Spanish, it was with the French people, it was with the with the Britain, and those different colonial powers. They had a conflict with the later period, and in 18th century, that is up till 1776, it was the local people who rose and fought against the British Empire and called themselves as an independent nation in 1776. Almost like 270 years ago, 250 plus years ago. So, in this whole stretch, Africa was the most dominated area by all kind of territories, all kind of countries. Germans were there, French were there, Dutch people were there, Spanish and Portugal forces were there, but predominantly it was German, British as well as the French forces. And they looted the whole of Africa. And this book entails how the continent was in a way divided into different tribes all across the Africa, and because of that, no central authority was there. They could not rise, they could not take up the global pan-Africa model, which has actually history in last few decades. As far as ASEAN countries and was concerned, they had a thriving civilization with some centrality of kingdoms, some centrality of institution in their countries, and they fought these colonial powers. And in some examples, some of those countries have been transformed into now American, British or the French influenced nations. So many a time we hear French dominated areas, English dominated areas in the ASEAN countries. And then Australia and New Zealand, which was predominantly UK's influence, and they found Captain Cook went there and conquered both the continents, and they literally removed the local inhabitants. The influence predominantly in Americas, North America particularly, partially in South America, and majoritarily in Australia and New Zealand, they literally removed the local population. उन सभी को मार डाला. और आज ऑस्ट्रेलिया में आपको ऑस्ट्रेलिया का ओरिजिनल आदमी नहीं दिखता है, न्यूजीलैंड का माओरी आपको बहुत कम दिखता है, आपको अमेरिका का लोकल अमेरिकन जो था वो गोरा नहीं था, वो हल्का लाल उसका कंप्लेक्शन था, उसको रेड इंडियन कहा. कोलंबस जब गया तो कोलंबस ने उसने सोचा ही इज विजिटिंग इंडिया, बट पीपल व्हेन ही मेट, so they, because of the skin color, they said these are red Indians, and because of that very word the red Indian terms had come. During the subsequent 2 centuries, they literally removed, killed all those majority of people. Now very, very small population is residing in the US, and those are called different federally administrative areas, and those are called nations, small territories where they have rights to govern the area through their own rules and regulation. Many a times you might have heard a word called karaoke nation. That karaoke nation is one of the original tribes of the US, and there are few more all across the US, and those are the people who have been saved. अब आप देखिए, once this technology entered in the play, Europeans, they included strength of the market, strength of their banks, and the governing structures of these model all across the world, and they extracted wealth and built the empires across the Europe. It was the predominant story till First World War, and then their interest conflicted with them and they fought for the territories all across the globe. And then First World War happened. In the First World War, League of Nations was started, and this was the League of the Nation which fought against the Germans and defeated Germans. Germans had to pay back, but in this shortest possible time they again rebuilt through the leadership of Adolf Hitler, which immediately turned into one of the most havoc creating, horrific, anti-human campaign against Jews. They killed lakhs of Jews in the concentration camps for their own wishes of dominating Europe. वो पूरे यूरोप को जीतना चाहता था, इसके लिए उसको लगता था कि ये ज्यूज उसके साथ नहीं हैं और ज्यूज से बहुत हेट करता था, उनको मारा. जब ये युद्ध चल रहा था, सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर 1939 में शुरू हुआ एंड इट वाज नॉट फिनिश्ड, एंड अमेरिका, इंग्लैंड, फ्रांस and on the other side Russia, these were the countries which call allied forces, and on the other hand the Japan, Italy and Germany, they were their own countries with their own network, their own coalition, which was later called Axis of Power. But because of this very situation, what happened was, Europe, on the Western Europe side, France was almost like on the brink of losing in every sense. UK was attacked almost weekly. They were bombing, there were attacks, but they kept on fighting. This drained the wealth from UK, this drained the wealth from France, and to a larger context you can say that Russia was also financially crumbling. Germany on the other hand, जो उसके पास strength था, वो उसका सारा का सारा युद्ध में लगा रहा था. They were pushing their whole resources into this conflict. In order to get support, America was introduced in the World War, and you must have seen the Pearl Harbor movie, which depicts how America actually went full on into the war. उस समय, after First World War, US was getting up as a stronger nation. उसने जब अपना स्ट्रेंथ बढ़ाया और वो सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर में आया, तो वो था कंट्री जो सब लोगों को पैसा दे रहा था. They were the people who were lending money, resources to UK and other countries. Because of this very relation of US with other allied forces, in 1944 एक सिचुएशन emerge हुआ. ये 1944 में क्या हुआ? In 1944 they held one conference in New Hampshire state of US. US का न्यू हैम्पशायर स्टेट में एक जगह है ब्रिटन वुड्स. आप लिखना चाहिए इसको, ब्रिटन वुड्स. वो ब्रिटन वुड्स जो जगह थी, वहाँ पर उन्होंने एक कॉन्फ्रेंस बुलाया जिसको बाद में ब्रिटन वुड्स कॉन्फ्रेंस बोला. उस कॉन्फ्रेंस में उन्होंने क्या डिस्कस किया? उन्होंने डिस्कस किया, ये वर्ल्ड वॉर तो हम जीत ही जाएंगे, वी विल विन दिस वर्ल्ड वॉर, व्हाट विल हैपन आफ्टर दिस. क्या होता है, एक बार कोई बड़ा युद्ध खत्म होता है, युद्ध के बाद इफ वंस द वॉर फिनिशेस, you have devastation all across the areas of that war, and society collapses, economic value collapses, and then there is high inflation. हर चीज महंगा हो जाता है. वो उन्होंने देखा था earlier in the First World War. The German mark was so depreciated, everything became so difficult to buy. एक ब्रेड बोलते हैं, वो लाखों मार्क का मिलता था, lakhs of mark. It was so difficult to buy even a single bread, क्योंकि आपका करेंसी का वैल्यू चला गया, आपके पास मटेरियल कम है, जितना फैक्ट्री था वो तोड़ दिया, आप तो लड़ते रहे. Till the time you are fighting, your resources are aligned in one direction, but when the war finishes, people will start doing their normal work, but the normal things are destroyed. What will happen? There will be a scarcity of resources, and that will push the inflation up. In order to balance it and in order to rebuild the captured area or areas which were destroyed, they created an institution called International Bank of Reconstruction and Development, IRBD, International Bank of IBRD, pardon me. And there was an earlier Bank of International Settlement, BIS. This BIS is headquartered in a place called Bern in Switzerland. And because of it is in Switzerland, in Geneva. And because of these institutions, the Bank of International Settlement and International Bank of Reconstruction and Development, together these two entities are called World Bank. और दूसरा उन्होंने बनाया IMF, International Monetary Fund. और इंटरनेशनल मॉनेटरी फंड ने इस पूरे डिस्कशन में क्या सेटल किया कि देखिए वर्ल्ड वॉर हो रहा है, आपका वॉर में बहुत सारा सिचुएशन होता है. नाउ हाउ टू बैलेंस द करेंसीज, इट विल गो इन इन्फ्लेशन. सो दे सेटल्ड दैट ऑल कंट्रीज विल कीप exchange rate with dollar, US dollar, and the US dollar will be in comparison with the gold value. तो उस समय गोल्ड का वैल्यू था 400 ग्राम्स, मतलब 1 आउंस के करीब करीब 1 आउंस ऑफ गोल्ड इक्वल टू $35. ये जो ब्रिटेन वुड्स एग्रीमेंट हुआ, दिस ब्रिटेन वुड एग्रीमेंट सेटल द ट्रेड ऑल अक्रॉस द ग्लोब, एंड दैट बिकेम्स जनरल एग्रीमेंट ऑफ tariff and trade, and later became WTO. And this first coming of 44 countries together, almost like 700 delegates in Bretton Woods, kind of initiated a multi-country or multilateral forum, which later in 1945 became United Nations. So क्या क्या हुआ उस समय? उस दिन एक सिटिंग में ही, एक बार में ही इतना सारा चीजों का स्टार्ट हो गया, डिस्कशन स्टार्ट हुआ, फॉर्म होने में टाइम लगा, यूएन बन गया, यूनाइटेड नेशन बन गया, डब्ल्यूटीओ बाद में बना पर उसका प्रीडिसेसर यहां बन चुका था, वर्ल्ड बैंक बनाया और साथ में आईएमएफ बनाया. आज आईएमएफ लोन देता है, वर्ल्ड बैंक सेटलमेंट करता है, डेवलपमेंट का बात करता है, ये सारा इंस्टीट्यूशन बनाया. तो अमेरिका ने अपनी डोमिनेंस का वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर बना दिया. आज दुनिया अमेरिका के इसी वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर के साथ काम करता है. इट वर्क्स इन दैट वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर ओनली, एंड टुडेज वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर इज marred by this influence, because in the post second world war UK and France became weaker, all other nations became weaker, America became stronger. On the other hand, Russia also had resources and particularly oil, and they also kept on becoming stronger, and it was Soviets, all the earlier communist nations together, and the Western bloc, that is the America and the Western European, these two divides, and they divided Germany into two halves, one the Soviet half and other the UK, or you can say the American half or the Western half. And because of this very aspect, whole of the world for next 50 odd years witnessed a period of called Cold War. एक सिचुएशन था, दुनिया दो पोल्स में डिवाइडेड था. इट इज कॉल्ड द वेस्टर्न ब्लॉक एंड द ईस्टर्न ब्लॉक. द वेस्टर्न, दैट इज कैपिटलिस्टिक ब्लॉक, द सोवियत, दैट इज सोशलिस्ट ब्लॉक, एंड देयर इन्फ्लुएंस, इट स्टेड from 1948, 49 till 1990, till the fall of the Soviet And when Soviet broke, it broke into 15 other nations. और उनका 16 देश बन गया अपने आप. ऐसा सिचुएशन हुआ कि they could not sustain their growth. आप अगर इमेजिन करिए उन्होंने ये वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर बनाया कैसे था. ये वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर बड़ी सिंपली बना था. आज का यूएन में सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल जो है उसमें अमेरिका है, उसमें यूके है, उसमें फ्रांस है, उसमें रशिया है. ये वही देश है जिन्होंने सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर जीता. साथ में उन्होंने एक और कंट्री को जोड़ा, दैट वाज चाइना. चाइना वाज इनवाइटेड इन 1945 लेटर, नॉट इन 44. ब्रिटेन वुड्स में वो नहीं था. 45 में उसको बुलाया, उसको ज्वाइन करवाया. बट 1947 में माओ से तुंग ने जब बीजिंग पर हमला किया, इट रिमूव्ड द चियांग काई शेक गवर्नमेंट, which is called KMT government, Kuomintang government, which went to Taiwan. And now the Taiwan is saying that they are the original China, and people who are there in Beijing, they are not the original China. But in 1971, after a gap of almost like 23 years, America and the other countries, they agreed that the permanent seat of the Security Council should be given to China. And China, of which place? Not of the Kuomintang, not in Taiwan, but seated in Beijing. आपने सुना होगा कि same offer was given to Jawaharlal Nehru ji multiple times. People claim it was given 3 times, 4 times, maybe more. This offer was given to Nehru ji and Nehru ji declined. They said this belongs to China. Not only because of the short-sightedness of Nehru ji, we lost this opportunity. We are still paying back in terms of strategic system because of these very mistakes. आज पूरी दुनिया इसी influence के ऊपर काम करता है. People who are in Security Council have tremendous power, and people who are in the Security Council with non-permanent seat, that is 10 more other countries, they come and go, but they don't hold the power like the Security Council permanent members. Those permanent members of the Security Council have a power called veto. If they don't like it, they decline it, they veto it. Once they veto, it cannot work. All the 5 countries have to agree on a particular theme, particular program, particular resolution. And today there is a discussion that there are countries which are rising up. There are countries which are contributing to the United Nations. Those must be included. There is one Germany, then there is India, then there is Brazil, then there is Turkey. Then there is Japan. Germany and Japan are the nation who lost in Second World War. Their story is rather different. When it comes to Africa, Africa doesn't represent someone or some country which can ask for a permanent seat in the Security Council. India is asking for a permanent seat in Security Council, but behold, understand that China will never support it. And once China vetoes it, India cannot enter into the Security Council. Russia is a friend nation, it will support. UK with the historical ties, colonial powers, stronger relation, they can also agree. France has agreed earlier, but America will play the strategic naysayer. Sometime it will utilize China, sometime it will say itself. And now, earlier it had offered India for the Security Council. Now the offer is not there on the table. Because of this very aspect that China was included in 1971, and in the subsequent time Deng Xiaoping's leadership, where he said it doesn't matter if a cat is black or a cat is white, it must catch the rat, it must catch the mice. It doesn't matter whether we follow capitalism, whether we follow socialism, it must deliver goods for the China, must deliver development to China. And because of that very aspect, he revolutionized China into a manufacturing hub for starting in 1977, and up till 1990, India's and China's economy, per capita economy, was almost equal. But their growth in next 20 years became phenomenal, and they had built highest infrastructure in the world in last 100 years. In comparison, In last 40 years, whatever China has built, it is uncompared with anything built all across the world. They have built largest, longest train network. They have built longest of high-speed network. They have built largest of cities now. One can criticize China's infrastructure, but it has grown leaps and bounds. On the other hand, because of the fall of the Soviet Empire, Russia became weaker. Or the Soviet nation, particularly later Russia, it became weaker. Its strength weakened, America got influence, its power rose, and again the Western bloc became even dominant. And now you see that right in 1990, whenever there is any conflict, America will enter, NATO forces will enter in that fray. So you have Europe, which is dependent on US for its security under NATO agreement. Then there is South America, where coups start happening, there's socialism, there is conflict, there are people who come and go, because whenever there is some government which is against America, America will topple it. And we have seen how it has happened in Venezuela. Within few hours, they actually captured the president of Venezuela and brought him to New York. In the same scenario, you see in Africa, whenever some country starts to grow, there will be a coup, there will be some regime change, and the regime change operation of CIA and the US, they will keep these countries in total turmoil. हमारा भी situation क्या था? और हमारे vicinity में, nearby neighborhood में, what has been the situation? Earlier, our government used to change within 2-3 years. Prime Minister used to change. And it was Atalji who could later in 1990s, 98, 99, Atalji came. Till 2004 he stayed. But later, though they were a government, stable in one sense, but the coalition government, which worked in total chaos, and because of that total chaos, one author wrote that 2004 to 2014 was a decade of decay. We could not work on our areas. Now, in last 12 years, Bharat has seen a clear development path. Total number of roads built, it has tremendously increased. Our rail network, which was untouched in many ways, only few areas was expanded, and it is growing in a fastest pace starting from its foundation in 1850s. And the high-speed rail network is being built across Ahmedabad and Mumbai. And in this very stream, you can say that India is developing all across areas, whether it is satellite, whether it is space technology, whether it is defense, whether it is production. During Corona, in the areas where we were buying, importing, even the toys from outside, India became Atmanirbhar in those areas. And government initiated a program called Atmanirbhar Bharat. In 2022, when we were celebrating 75 years, this Atmanirbhar Bharat, with a vision to Amrit Kal, that is 2022 to 2047, 25 years, this timeline was called in order to build a Viksit Bharat. आज हमारा situation बहुत difficult है. It is not very easy. On one side, we have difficult relation with America now. And America is that powerful bully in the room who has resources, who has power. But we cannot fight directly with that bully. आप ऐसा आदमी से नहीं झगड़ा कर सकता है जिसके पास स्ट्रेंथ है, पावर है और वो रूम में चिल्ला रहा है और जिसका लीडरशिप डोनाल्ड ट्रंप की तरह पागल है. आपके पास इंटेलिजेंस से काम करना पड़ेगा. You need to fight strategically without actually annoying or disturbing the decorum of the room. You need to seek your interests. That's why India is buying cheaper oil from Russia, from its long-time friend. It is buying resources all across the areas, diversifying its imports. On one side, because we have to buy so much of oil from outside, whatever we grow in our country, a tremendous amount. It is in values almost like $500 billion that we invest in these kind of situation. इसीलिए इंडिया को, भारत को, in coming time, Prime Minister called that for 1-2 years we should decrease our interest imports of gold. We should not travel outside without, we should focus traveling within our country in order to save our foreign currency. Because of the devaluation, because of the market forces, changing scenario in India and the globe, and particularly because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, US-Israel-Iran conflict, US-China rivalry, India-European free trade agreement, India-UK free trade agreement, India-ASEAN relations. India is building its network all across the globe in order to find newer markets for its products. But अभी भी situation पर बहुत काम करना बाकी है. On one side, China has a tremendous strength on manufacturing, and its growth has pushed it into artificial intelligence and in the 5G IoT era. उसके पास वो सारी टेक्नोलॉजीज आज है जो AI को बनाने के लिए, AI इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को बनाने के लिए चाहिए. On the other hand, we had a service sector, we had universities, colleges, good education system, which pushed us into the areas of high competitiveness. But on the other hand, largest of our population is still outside education. We need to focus on that area. In the coming years, the target of national education policy, which has been declared, that by 2035 we should have 50% of our youth with higher education degrees. इसीलिए हमारे सामने बड़ा important है, in coming years if we can push more number of people into higher education. If you draw a comparison across all the countries, how many countries have growth? They have seen a growth in their era whenever they had these kind of opportunity. How many people adopted for which kind of subject areas or research? Then you'll particularly observe that the countries which are on the growth part, though all those countries have seen student and youth adopting science and technology, STEM subject, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. आपको ये सब्जेक्ट ले करके तब आप अपनी देश का ग्रोथ के अंदर ज़्यादा कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकता है. And later, once the country grows into a substantial level, then you are diversifying into different fields. अभी तक अपना देश में our people who are studying science and technology are still very less. On the comparison, China and other European nations, when they were growing, Korea, Japan, they had a larger population who were studying sciences and technology. There's an interesting data which I saw a few days back. At the peak in Second World War, 45% of the youth population or the population, working population of UK, they were working in industries. हमारा अभी भी 70% population is working in agriculture. Very small population is working in manufacturing. A substantial number is working in service sector, and that service sector contributes almost like 50% of our economy. Though it is very good, it is non-hazardous, economical, but it has a higher cost that it doesn't deliver goods to the lower strata of the society. इसमें वही आदमी आ सकता है जिसका एजुकेशन एक लेवल का हो जाता है. इसीलिए in order to allow more number of people to get money, more number of people to get resources, more number of people to participate in growth journey, we need to have manufacturing facilities, infrastructure in our country. So youth of India must build its capacities in skills needed for these industries. Youth of India should take part in the areas where it can become not the job taker, job seeker, but the job provider. It should build something. आप कल दिन के लिए कोई ऐप बनाएगा, सोशल मीडिया का काम करेगा, कोई ऑनलाइन कोई स्टार्टअप करेगा, उससे ज़्यादा you need to build something, make something, some product has to come, so that it requires people to work on the floor of the shop, on the floor of the industry where it is built. So any kind of manufacturing process has to be there, because as a combination of the countries which grew in last 100, 200, 300, 400 years, all those countries had manufacturing as the core discipline, and that took the country out of poverty. अगर अपने लोगों को गरीबी से, अशिक्षा से बाहर निकालना है, we need to manufacture. And that has been the key story in Angus Madison report also. Bharat was net provider of these processed products coming out of, whether it was a cotton, we were biggest producer of cotton even in the ancient times. We were the biggest producer of wood, steel arms, and we were the biggest producer of different spices, products, and those products were sold all across the globe. In the Europeans and in the Arab world, in Java, Sumatra, Indonesia also, Indian trader used to go. And now with the Indian knowledge system, you are learning about all these areas. In coming times, we need to invest in our education. In coming time, we need to focus on skill development. In coming time, we need to focus on research. And these are the core areas which are being discussed in national education policy. So if a youngster has to be asked, then education will become the core thing. On the other hand, India is witnessing some of the problems also. The problem lies with the demography. Any country, if it demography or total fertility, TFR rate drops below 2.1. India is right now at 1.9. It is already dropped, meaning thereby the population of India will now decrease. Bharat's population will now decrease. This number comes that every lady, every female, how many kids they have on an average. Earlier it used to be 3.5. Every mother used to have, every lady used to have on an average 3 to 4 kids. And now the average is 1.9. Most of the people are not having 2 kids. That's why the number is less. Few people are having 2 kids. And very, very rarely there are kids more than 2. But this is not same all across the communities. Because of some religious and cultural connotations, some of the communities are still having more kids per mother, per lady, per female, and their total fertility ratio is somewhere around 4 to 5. And other communities, because of these Western notion of double income, no kids, dink, and we will only have 1 kid, 1 boy or 1 girl. Because of this very structure, the grandparents, 4 grandparents will have 2 children, that is 2 mothers and 2 fathers on the in-law side, and the direct mothers or fathers side, they will have 2 boys and girls who will probably get married, and then they will have 1 kid. And in that situation, 1 granddaughter or grandson, grandchild will have 2 parents and 4 grandparents and 16 great grandparents. See, if you only have 1 child, this will be the decline in a factor of 2. आपके 2 parents, 2 के 4 grandparents, 4 के 8 उसका डबल, pardon me, 4 का 16 great grandparents. So the situation would be totally different now. Because of this, the economy would crash like anything. You will have very less number of people who will buy, who will grow their income. In France, what is happening is the pension of the elders was, some share of that pension was earned by the present generation, and when they submit their PF fund, portion of that PF fund goes to the elders' income. Because of this very problem, the PF of the elders, it is costing the French government tremendously, and it is the same situation all across the globe, where you have more number of elderly people. Unka health ka, unka pension ka cost, it goes from the younger population. इसलिए any society, it has to sustain a pyramid where the younger people are more in population, so that they can sustain development for the long. In the coming years, it is only Afghanistan in SAARC nation. It is Pakistan, it is Bangladesh, where they have a positive TFR ratio, and it is whole of Africa in coming years which has a positive TFR ratio, and by 2100, whole of the world will have predominantly African and Asian population. आज पूरी दुनिया में आप जाते हैं तो you see American people, South American people, European people, but in 2100s it will be 50% of the world population, almost like pardon me, the predominant of almost like 75 to 80% of population will come from the two continents, and that would be the situation where the youth of the world will have to ponder, reflect and see a future in coming times. धन्यवाद. भारत माता की जय.
ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಈ ಅವಧಿ ಮುಗಿದಿರುತ್ತದೆ. ಸೂಚನೆ: ಇದೀಗ